So if I could have you stay as much to the front as possible. If you're going to be making comments or saying things during the meetings, we're going to ask that you come down and use the microphones. I'm hoping I will be able to not make you come down to make motions and seconds as we follow Robert's rules. If you speak loudly and tell us your name so that our clerk can record it. It is necessary that he records that. So if it turns out that you're not loud enough and vigorous enough with your seconds and motions, you'll have to come down to the mics to do that as well. Again, we'll be following Robert's rules to the best of my ability. Usually works out pretty well. So I'd like to go ahead and start the meeting. The citizens of the Village of Woodstock, who are legal voters in the Village of Woodstock, Vermont, County of Windsor, are hereby warned to meet at the Town Hall on the 19th day of March, 2019 at 7 a.m., continuing until 7 p.m. for the purpose of transacting during that time voting by Australian ballot. That voting closed at 7, and the tallies are available for this meeting and will be announced. The citizens of the Village of Woodstock, who are legal voters of the Village of Woodstock, County of Windsor, State of Vermont, are hereby warned to meet at the Woodstock Town Hall in said village on the 19th day of March, 2019 at 7:30 to act upon the following articles, which I will go through. And just again, just for people just still coming in, if you want to come down to where you can hear and be heard and use the microphones when it comes time to make comments and so forth. Very much appreciated. I did forget one announcement, I'm sorry. Village voters are the only ones that can cast votes at this meeting. We welcome others to be here and be part of the meeting, but it's just village voters that will be able to vote. The first article is to elect the village officers for the ensuing year as required by law. And at this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Board Chair Jeff Kahn.
Thank you, Greg. And I'd like to mention to those of you here that we're meeting down here instead of upstairs to protect the health of our village manager. And that's the reason. Some of you may be carrying something that you're not even aware of, and we don't want anyone to catch it. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to elect a moderator for a one-year term, if someone would so move.
I'll nominate Frederick Camp.
That's Jane Soul. Is there a second? Joe DiNatale. Any other? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And so, thank you, Greg. You may take it back over.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your confidence. We'll try and keep it moving and do a good job. The next position we're looking for is clerk, and I would entertain a nomination. If we could. What's that? Oh.
Chris Miller, I'd like to nominate Don Wheeler.
Chris Miller nominating Don Wheeler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got it? Down front? Okay. Any other nominations? Seeing none, we will close the nominations. All those in favor of electing Don Wheeler as clerk for the ensuing year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Elected. Trustees were done by Australian ballot. And if I have them correct, the 3-year position I'll announce first. The person winning by Australian ballot is Carrie Agan. Congratulations for another term. And we have a new trustee that will be joining us for the ensuing year. Congratulations to Anna DiNatale. Okay, other positions. Treasurer. Any nominations for the position of treasurer?
I'll nominate Candace Coburn.
Sally Miller nominating Candace Coburn.
I'll
Second,
second
Sabrina, right up front. Any other nominations? Hearing none, we will vote on the single nomination to pass Candace Coburn for treasurer for the ensuing year of 2019, 2020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Congratulations, Candace. Okay. Trustee of Public Funds. Be looking for a nomination on that.
I would nominate Chris Lloyd.
I'll second that. Mary Wilson.
Yep. Got it, Don? Any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll vote on the single nomination of Chris Lloyd, for Trustee of Public Funds for the ensuing year, 2019-2020. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Congratulations, Chris. Auditors. We have 2 one-year positions. I can take both motions. Is that right? Yes, 2 one-year positions. I can take both names in a single motion, if that's possible. Anybody want to make that motion? Little activity here?
I'll make a motion, Carrie Egan to choose Charlie Kimball and Corwin Sharp.
A second anywhere?
Second.
Marion? Thank you, Marion, for announcing your name. That's helpful. Any other nominations? Hearing none. This is the fun part of the meeting, sorry. We will close nominations and vote on the single slate of 2 officers for 2 auditors for the ensuing year. All those in favor by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. Last one for these positions, fire wardens. We're looking for 3. There are some in last year's report. I don't know if there's any new names, if I could just throw that out there.
I would nominate Joe Carey, Ed Page, and Kent McFarland.
Joe Pitt, Carey, Ed Page, Brent Farland. Okay?
Seconded.
Seconded. Got it. Any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations. All those in favor of those 3 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Political career opening.
Okay. Thank you for getting us through Article 1. Always takes a few minutes on that one. Article 2. To receive and act upon the reports of the village officers, those reports that were in your report already released. We'll need a motion and a second to at least bring them up. Chris.
I move to receive the reports.
Chris Miller. Do I have a second?
Second, Chris Lloyd.
Chris Lloyd. Questions, comments? Okay. Straightforward and good reports. All those in favor of receiving said reports signify by saying aye. Aye. And same sign for opposed. And Article 2 carries. Article 3, to fix the annual compensation for the elected village officers, moderator, $50 per meeting, treasurer, $1,500 per year, clerk, $400 per year, trustees, $750 per year. Motion, anyone?
So moved, Mary Wilson.
Second?
Second,
Sally Miller. Again, thank you for announcing your names. Any questions, changes, objections, discussion? Okay. All those in favor of Article 3 as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed say the same sign. And Article 3 carries. Article 4. To see if the village will vote to collect the village general taxes on real estate and all other taxes levied through the treasurer under the provisions of Title 32 VSA Chapter 133, and to fix the date of payment as November 1st, 2019 and May 1st, 2020. Do I have a motion on Article 4?
So moved.
Oh, Chris moves. Second?
I'll second it, 2 days.
With that? Any questions or discussion on Article 4? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing Article 4 as presented signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carries. Article 5, to see if the village will vote to authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Trustees, to borrow money, if necessary, in the anticipation of taxes for fiscal year 2019-2020, and to defray current expenses and debt of the village. Motion on Article 5.
So moved, Mary
Oh.
Cotier, or Joe Beebe.
Joe Dinatelli moves, Marion Coetzee seconds. How's that? Questions, discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 5 as it is presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Objection, same sign. All right. Now we can get down to actual meeting stuff. Article 6, to see if the village will vote to appropriate the sum of $1,583,535 and raise by taxation the sum of $542 to pay the current expenses debt of the village. Those broken down: general government, $249,480, planning and zoning, $112,725, village highway, $332,900, village police, $886,730, capital outlay of $1,700, giving the total of $1,583,535. If we could get a motion and a second to put Article 6 on the floor. Joe, the motion and a second? Oh, go ahead, Jane Soul, second. Okay, Article 6 is on the floor for discussion, and at this point, we usually turn things over to our trustees for explanations and...
Yes, if
Thank
you would, thank you, Greg. If you would turn to page 29, we'll start with general government. No, I mean 21. Yes, page 21. Page 21. And starting with under trustees, you'll notice everything is pretty much in line with the past until you reach the bottom line, compensation, unused sick and vacation pay, and that's because of an anticipated retirement by a long-time employee. Not Phil. Thank goodness. And this is a sum that is also, you saw on the town budget as well. And that accounts for the big difference there. Not much change throughout the rest of this page. And if you have a question about any specific line, I'd be happy to go back to it. But other than that, there's nothing significant beyond that 28,000. On the next page, page 22, you will see an increase in employer-paid benefits, and that's primarily due to the hiring of a new accountant, an assistant accountant who will be taking over as accountant in the future, and that would account for that increase. There was nobody in that position before. And the rest of it is pretty straightforward. Are there any questions about the general government section? Yes, Marion.
I wonder why we haven't been accruing unused sick and vacation that would end up being paid out so that it isn't hit as a heavy expense in the year. Is it not allowed in the government?
No, we can do it, we should start, sorry. Between the microphone and the mask, okay, I can hear myself, that sounds better. I was thinking about this on the way down, and when we went through the merger, the village, everybody expected it to pass, and the village spent every dime it had in the bank because it didn't want to give it to the town. Perfect sense. Then it didn't pass. Then we had the recession of '08. And again, trying to be protective of people's tax bills, we do need to start doing that, and that would be the smart play.
Okay.
So a year from now, you'll be here us talking about, we'll say, man, remember you asked us to do this? We want you back up here.
I do it in my job.
Thank
I
you.
support you.
But you're correct, and we will start doing it. Carrie has always been mentioning that.
There's actually, we've also been working on, and this subject, Marion, working on changing things going forward for new hires so that people have to use sick and vacation time over a certain time period instead of accruing it until the age of retirement. And that's something that's being worked on right now.
That's why.
Mhm.
Is sick always paid out?
Yes. So that was to reduce employee absenteeism. And it works, but this is the flip side.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question.
Any other questions on this section? Yes, Ann.
I'm Ann Devervoise, and I just noticed that we have in this town a shortage of housing, affordable housing, and means that our taxes go up. And so we may have to leave town. And I was just wondering, it's quite a contradictory situation, and I was just wondering if we've really thought about that.
We might have to leave.
And we know that there's a shortage of housing, affordable housing in particular, in both the village and the town. And people are talking about it, and I'm not sure that there's anything concrete happening. People are, yes, working on it. Yes, a number of organizations are. Yeah, Joe.
In that vein, it appears to me that the influx of Airbnb businesses that are buying up houses and using them exclusively for business ventures as an Airbnb, two things are happening, and I'm glad to hear any rebuttal, but to me, it seems like two things are happening. One is, it's critically hurting our existing bed and breakfast businesses in the community, and two, they're eating up houses that probably would go to people who buy affordable housing. So there seems to be a double whammy going on here. Now, I know that the state is looking at the issue. I've talked to Charlie about it. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to Allison about it. And I've been told that the state is looking at it, and they do what the state does. And I'm wondering if there's some kind of initiative that can be taken on a local level and not wait for this state to go through its process, which who knows how long that will take, and address that issue on a local level, somehow, some way. That's just a
I don't
question.
think that you could possibly, I don't think that you could possibly depict who someone can sell their house to. I mean, we've had it where second homeowners have been dominating this area for a long time. People want the most for their house, so they sell it to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
And then houses are never going to be affordable.
Well, maybe that
Well, can I just say that the Planning Commission does have groups that are working on new zoning ordinances? Oi. The Planning Commission is working on it, and I know that there are, right now it's limited, so short-term rental is limited to 6 times per year in the village, exclusive of foliage. If you have a manager who lives on site in the town, it's 10 times per year. If you have more than 5 acres, it's unlimited. But I know that there are discussions underway that may limit it further in the village. I know that some of the proposals being discussed are something like short-term rentals will be limited to properties that are owner-occupied and primary residences.
Is that a discussion that the trustees get involved with, or is that outside your?
That's Planning Commission.
That's Planning Commission. That's Planning Commission, and then after that, it gets voted upon by this board in terms of in the village itself. But we're glad that that's what they're working on.
Jill, did you have something to say?
I just wanted to respond to Joe that a big discussion will be happening on April the 3rd in the planning commission meeting about that subject.
April 3rd, Planning Commission
Big
meeting.
discussion about that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions in the general government section? All right, if not,
I'd just like to throw out, it's really great to have such an active and thoughtful planning commission. Thank you all.
Well, moving on to boards and agencies, we see not a lot of change. Almost everything's about level. Sometimes there's some questions regarding certain sections, so I'll just go over those briefly. Sometimes people have a question when it comes to advertising and why that's in the budget, and the advertising budget is related to advertising for legal notices for meetings and events. And that's why you see it there, and it's also why it's still the same. The professional services as well, typically consulting fees when there's a professional outside opinion that's being sought. But as you can see from the section, there's very little change. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to get into them. But seeing none, I will move it along.
Village Highway, as you may recall, the merged highway departments reappeared in fiscal 2017. So as now, the town provides all highway maintenance services in the village. The village turns over our state highway maintenance grants to the town, as well as the entire amount of the village highway rebate to the town. And this highway rebate number fluctuates year to year. It's based on the grand list. Any questions on this section?
I'm wondering how that impacts on page 29, the analysis of tax rates. Is the change in the highway department somehow reflected in this, or do we have to recognize that in 2017, a lot of that decrease in tax went because of the highway department?
That's correct.
that's why I went.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is the village police department. It is one of the larger portions of our budget. Some of the changes are that there are standard increases, and last year we voted on a pay scale increase for the police force. And if you look at, but pretty much everything else is quite standard as it comes down. But you will see at the end on at line 7 on page 25, there is that number increase. The meters were for a short amount of time costing us to do repairs, but that has actually been, for the most part, handled. But it is bringing in more revenue, so that's why the budget is actually higher for the police department. Are there any questions as it goes through the police?
So you're saying it's offset by the revenue?
Correct.
We purchased a lot of batteries this year, and that was one of the problems. We don't get enough sun, especially in the winter, to charge the batteries in the meters, and so purchasing batteries this year has kept has improved our ability to keep the meters running. And we have a charger that charges those batteries at the police department, so that's helped.
I'd also just add, we've seen a general and steady shift, slowly but surely, towards the credit cards with the meters, which is interesting, and it's something we're going to continue to keep an eye on when it comes to what our long-term plan is for the meters going forward.
All right, so moving on to capital reserve spending on page 25, line 9. Not much is changing in the new fiscal year. We do have on line 13, that $1,200, that is us paying the lease on a new truck for our village/town manager. Everything is pretty much the same. That $500 on line 11 for computer equipment replacement is basically anticipating general fixes or breakdowns that may happen over the course of the fiscal year. Does anyone have any questions about capital reserve spending, loss repair expenses, or grant expenses? All right.
Anything? Just a comment, okay. Anything further on?
Leave it that way,
Yeah.
Joseph. Leave it that way.
We're almost there. Anything further for discussion or questions on the budget, which is Article 6?
Is there anything that the trustees would want to point out on the revenue page at all, other than maybe what we already discussed, meters? Nothing really?
No surprises?
No surprises, nothing unusual.
Was there another hand up, or was it the same question or something? Yeah? Chris Miller?
I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this question, but is there a reason why we could not zero out the highway portion of our budget? We collect it and we hand it to, and we get reimbursed by the town. It's a zero game, but I'm assuming there's some legal reason why we can't do that.
Did everyone hear the question? What's that? Yeah? Okay, about the highway budget?
I would say, Chris, I think this is on.
No.
Tech support.
It's on. Hello.
Okay, so my fear is that the state might look at it like one budget for the community and the village misses out on opportunities for grants. The village trustees can apply for highway grants. We picked up one to fix North Street. They put $230,000 in our pocket. When you go from we wouldn't get that from the town because the town got other money last year and you're kind of in a cycle. So I'd be afraid about that.
Other question?
Amy McElroy, can you just explain the decrease in the traffic tickets for 2019 to 2020, line 24 on page 26?
The decrease in traffic tickets, correct?
Yeah.
Well, Robbie will take a stab at it. He's on his feet. Let him talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, so with the traffic tickets, the revenue is down, but the part of that is, I think, flashing speed signs, but also our arrests were up 30% last year. And our arrests are up 30% over last year. And it takes quite a while, and our investigations were up as well. So what it leaves is less time for the officers for the enforcement. But aside from that, so for 2018, for instance, or up through this period in the fiscal year, we had collected $73,047 or had been collected on tickets that were written, and out of that share was $37,591. So the rest went to the state of Vermont. So we can only collect a certain portion of each ticket that we write. And so that accounts to about 37% is what we're collecting on those tickets. But that said, we were number 4 in the state last year for ticket writing. Heck, we wrote more tickets than Burlington did. So it's just, part of it is the state isn't quick to pay. So when the revenue comes out like that, that's what it looks like. The only 2 municipalities that wrote more tickets than us was Virginia and Castleton, but we took in actually more revenue than they did because we write the truck tickets, which are higher in fines. So, in a nutshell, that's why I think that number.
How much of those trucks?
How much of our revenue is trucks? I don't know. It's not carved out like that. I have to go line by line, month by month, to see what tickets would be what. And it would only be based on the amount that's written on the ticket. That would be the only way that I could even tell that it was a truck ticket, because I know the amounts are pretty standard. But so I don't know what the exact percentage would be, Joe.
Yeah, the only reason I keep bringing it up is because I remember years ago we had this huge debate, and I don't want to be redundant, but it got into digging a tunnel and making a bridge and going on, I mean, all this stuff. But what stuck in my mind was there was a report that not only were we getting wall-to-wall trucks going through town, but the effect they were having on the old buildings.
Right, the effect of the buildings and the roads, which is
That's-
why
that's-
there's,
That's the most concerning thing.
yeah, and as you all know, we have a carve-out really in the statute. It's not necessarily named after Woodstock, but we're about the only ones that enforce it, is that they have to have a permit if they're over a certain length between New Hampshire and 100 South.
Do they carry that permit with them?
They're supposed to,
They're
yes.
supposed to.
Yeah.
So are you allowed to stop them just to see if they have it?
Correct. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You are.
Good question. Any other questions? Budget, either side, revenue? Okay. Seeing no more questions or comments on Article 6, I would entertain a vote to approve Article 6 as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Article 6 carries. Nice explanations, everyone. Article 7, to see if the Village of Woodstock will vote to appropriate and raise by taxation the sum of $5,000 for the care and planting of trees. Could I get a motion for Article 7?
So moved, Marion Coates here.
Okay.
Sally Miller.
Sally Miller, seconding. Questions, comments? Oh, go ahead.
Jill Davis, I
Yeah.
just wondered why you're taking this, not putting this in the budget.
Why it's not in the general budget? It's always been here. I know that as the moderator. but-
It's just the way it's been. I suppose we could change it, but maybe it's just makes people more aware that that's something that they can decide whether they want to do or not.
Did it ever have anything to do with grants, Phil, or anything like that?
I would just say if people wanted to spend more money on trees, they have a perfect opportunity to amend that article.
More control?
It's a nice palate cleanser after approving the budget.
Chris, Miller?
Chris Miller, I didn't notice, but is there already money in the budget for trees, and this is in addition to that? Or is this the only money for trees?
Only money for trees. There is a trust fund for trees, and it does not generate enough money to be meaningful.
And does this item also cover the cost of cutting down dead trees and sick trees?
No,
Okay.
that's in the town highway budget.
Chris, go ahead.
All right, I'm sorry to have to ask this, but why is this not in the town budget?
Well, town meeting was 2 weeks ago. We'll hear from you next year. It certainly could be. Again, I think over time, I think the village residents care more about village trees than maybe others.
Just in my historical opinion, it's been a good thing to have this in the budget and seeing it go up over the years. And I think the village has always, as Phil says, wanted control over trying to keep the village itself extra beautiful with more trees.
This money pretty much replaces what was lost from trust funds. That's trust fund income.
That could explain why. No, Chris?
Sorry, you suggested that we could amend this article and put it in, how do we do that?
Make a motion.
I move that this money be put into the budget next year. And I move to amend the article. I don't know, what am I supposed to say? You're suggesting we amend this one this year, right?
No,
All you
because we
can
already
do
passed.
is amend the dollar value of that
Right.
special article from $5,000 to anything else you like.
Correct. Because the budget already passed as presented. You could have them put it in next year's budget by a suggestion.
All right, good. Well heard.
Suggested.
So I do like voting on special articles.
Okay. Thank you. We understand where you're coming from, Chris.
Chris, if you want to learn more, you can become a village trustee.
Free advertising. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Wendy Marinan, are there specific plants or trees in need of replacing or spots already identified?
Want to look for Don Miller on this?
We do have a list of trees that have been removed and need to be replaced. And I am working with some other local citizens to form a committee to make sure we're replacing ones that are the most important to replace and try to come up with a landscape plan that will make the village more attractive and sustainable. So we are definitely working. There isn't a formal plan right now, but we're working and creating that. So in this summer, there will be a plan, and some of these trees will be planted this summer.
To add to that question, does $5,000 meet that perceived plan?
It will probably not meet all of the needs of that plan, but it will be a start, and we can add more in the budget next year. We can come up with a more concrete figure to see how much would be needed in the future.
I was trying to put this $5,000 in context of what is happening.
What's actually needed, you mean, or of what's actually needed by the committee? Yeah. So I think she's looking, Don, for, is it 5,000 towards 20, 50,
Yeah,
right?
it's probably about 5 trees that would be concentration of the planting on the green, maybe a couple others. And then there are a lot more other trees that need to be replaced around the village, and we can come up with a budget or figures to put in the budget for next year.
So, Dawn, would you like more money?
More money is always good, definitely. There's other angles of the planting and the planting process. There's stumps that need to be removed and the ground amended, and extra money toward that is always helpful.
We did raise this from $4,000 to $5,000 not very long ago, just so everyone knows that.
This year.
Yes.
Yeah. It was,
This year we raised it to $5,000 from $4,000.
So can I make an amendment to this? Suggest an amendment?
You can, in just a moment. Yeah, let's hear from Marion.
Before the amendment, I would just like to comment that in the actual column, we spent $2,700 less in 17-18. And I think that Don's suggestion of a plan is probably a better thing to be voting on in a future budget than it is to just grab a figure out of the air and not have a plan for it.
Yeah,
So
going along with Marion, it might be good to use this money to do what we can this year and come up with a more solid budget price for the next year.
I'm sort of sensing as the moderator, there's an appetite for more trees and spending more money on it, but that we should have Dawn present us with a plan at the next meeting. Is that sort of what I'm getting for a mood to try and?
So then you have to wait a year then?
Done. In a general situation, about how much does it cost to plant one tree? And I think that, if anything, that's what people were trying to
Yeah,
understand.
that's what I was saying, a decent sized tree. I was saying, 5 trees, about $1,000 a tree, you got to plant.
Okay. Does that answer anybody's?
Well, it helps. You know, you're getting 5 new trees. Marion?
There may be grant funding
Exactly.
for this sort of thing, too. So I think a plan is wiser than a...
Yeah. Just an increase.
Increase.
And you do have a committee, Dawn, or at least some interested folks that
We
might...
do have some interested folks.
Because perhaps interested folks could, you know, approach you with some grant suggestions and so forth. Does that sound amenable to everyone? Okay. All right. Article 7, any further discussion? All those in favor of Article 7 as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, 7 will pass. Article 8, to see if the Village of Woodstock will vote to raise, excuse me, and appropriate from taxes the sum of $5,000 for the purpose of village beautification projects and seasonal decorations. This money to be spent at the discretion of the Board of Trustees. Motion? Marion Coates here. Second? Katie? Thank you. Any questions or discussions on this article? Oh, I'm sorry.
Wendy Marion,
Thank you, Wendy.
can this amount be put in contact with other resources that are coming into the same purpose? For example, the EDC has a grant, has granted money in the past. In other words, I don't think $5,000 is the total budget of these efforts.
I don't know if I should answer that, but go ahead.
Unfortunately, the EDC only gives a one-time grant for something, so they're not going to do that again according to their current laws of how they, or what would that be called?
Operate.
The current operating way, so, yeah, I don't think it would be combinable.
Yep.
I would say that the EDC will be having conversations about how they're doing those grants, so I would never say that it's not going to happen, because I think that there's still discussion about how the EDC funds will be used in the future. And for anybody who's interested, the report of the Village Revitalization Committee will be this Thursday at 6 o'clock. So if anybody's interested in that, where the EDC had hired a consultant to come up with a plan for village revitalization, it's called. And from that, there may be some ideas about where money could be spent. And that may be also a conversation that happens at the EDC for future funding. So this may be just part of another larger conversation. But in this case, there's already been a plan done, so hopefully future requests will be based on that.
To follow up on that, Sally, I would love to see this come out of where the EDC is going in terms of what we're using that $5,000 for. For instance, the flowers that we put out, the flower boxes that go up on the light poles throughout the village in the summertime. This is largely where this $5,000 is going right now. And it would be great if that was supported on a regular basis by EDC funds, in my opinion, as opposed, and then we could perhaps lose this figure in the village budget.
Okay. Further discussion on Article 8? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 8 as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Article 8 carries. Article 9, to see if the Village of Woodstock will vote to appropriate the sum of $400 for the purpose of paying the trustee of public funds for services rendered and approve such expenditures from the income of the trust funds. Motion on Article 9. Chris Miller moves. Second. Second. All right. Jeff Kahn, second. Any questions or discussion on Article 9? Marion?
I would just like to comment that the retiring village trustee of public funds has refused the payment because the funds have not been making any money. It's nice to keep it in there in case it turns around, because I think, but It hasn't been,
Hasn't been taken.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, this is a good time to thank Marion for her work on our behalf.
Yes.
I'll probably follow.
Yeah.
I'll probably follow Marion.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Probably, but we want to make more money.
Yeah, I got you. So, but for now, we're going to leave the article in place, Article 9, is that correct? All those in favor of Article 9 as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Article 9 carries. Article 10, which we'll take up anyway, to see if the village will vote to appropriate the sum of $400 for the purpose of auditing the, public funds and approve such expenditures from the income of the trust fund. Motion on Article 10? Nope. Marion, and then, okay, Chris. There. Got those done? Any other discussion? Questions? All those in favor of Article 10 as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, nicely done, folks. Article 11 is to act on any other business that may legally come before the village meeting. We have maybe a couple of small comments, but do we have, okay. Sally?
Stand up for this one. I'm Sally Miller. I'm the coordinator for the Economic Development Commission. One of the projects that they have funded is a community visioning project. And some of you folks may remember that when we did it with the Vermont Council for Rural Development back in 2005, we had a lot of community conversations and some work groups that came out of it. So this is a similar process that we'll be doing. We've already started. We have some folks that are sort of forming a steering committee. We're gathering some ideas about how to do the process, but we're also looking for people that might want to be involved in either being on the steering committee or ambassadors to different groups within our community, or just general conversation. There'll be a lot of different opportunities in the next 5 to 6 months, but we'd like people to be part of it. If you want to be more directly involved, let me know, or just keep an eye out for different activities that will be happening in the next few months. There are cards in the lobby right now where you can say things that you love about our town, or other thoughts that you might have, and you're welcome to fill those cards as well. So just making that note.
Thank you, Sally.
I'd like to mention something that this Ward Goodenough is leaving us after 4 years of public service, and we appreciate the work that Ward has done coming to our meetings, whether he was on time or slightly late. But anyway, it was more than good enough. Well, you know what? Ward is 29 years old, and I just did not think it would be appropriate to give him something like a bowl or a certificate. But what do you give a 29-year-old? So, Ward, I want you to take this and enjoy it. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you, Ward. Any other business to come before the meeting? Yes.
8 or 10 years ago, there was a movement to merge the village and the town. And I think over the years, it seems that there's been sort of a creeping merger going on with the highway department and ambulance department. But there still seems to be a burden on the village, especially in the police department and zoning. And I'd like Phil to tell us a bit about what would you see as the benefits of a merger, and would it save we village people any taxes out of it?
Jeff and I had this conversation just before this meeting started, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to him, because it's above my pay grade.
Thank you very much. That's, I don't know about that, Phil. But we were talking about it. And let me give you an example, because I know people think about this. If you're, say your taxes on this year's tax rate, the probable tax rate, on a $400,000 home, just as an example, would be about $778 in the village. If the town and the village merged, you would save about $300. The savings are, the expenses are still there, even though it would be distributed over more people. But what you would lose is representation for things that are very specific to the village. And so you have to debate whether, that $300 is worth it or not. And I personally think that it is, but everyone has the right to form their own opinion on whether that amount of savings would be worth dissolving something. By the way, this is year 183 for village meetings, I believe. So since 1836, there's been a village government. So that's what we've come up with as an answer to what the savings are. You'd have to interpret that for different home prices, but that's what it would be about for a $400,000 home, John.
Phil made an interesting point about he got grants to fix North Street. Thank you very much for fixing our North Street. And that would have been a problem if it hadn't been village going
Correct.
after those grants.
That's fact.
That's an additional factor, John.
The same as some paving on Pleasant Street this summer and paving on Church Hill in the village last summer. We do pretty well. We would give up on all those.
That's fairly substantial sometimes. Mary?
I don't understand why we'd give up on that.
Because you would have one entity, town of Woodstock. No more village.
Is there like a maximum amount?
There's maximums and there's recurring. I go in and apply every year, but they like to rotate it among towns. They don't like to give all their money to the same town that applies every year. So I do well, but I don't get it every year. But I get more having a town and a village to put on the application. They're different legal entities.
Yes.
Interesting. Chris Miller?
My argument against the village has always been tax fairness. And I think that there is clearly a reason, as Phil has said, that the village could still want to exist for those reasons. But I would encourage you to shift as much of our budget as possible to the town. There are very few things in our village budget that I don't think should be shared with all of the town residents. The ones that are particularly egregious in my mind are the ones that we split. 2 weeks ago, they're small, they're just buggy. 2 weeks ago, we were asked to pay for some things. Today, we're asked to pay for some other things, the same things, again. That's just an example of the things that we should be doing away with, try and get as much of the money out of our village budget as possible. Not necessarily merge if you don't think that's necessary, but shrink our budget and shift it to the town.
Well, I just add to that I, came onto this board in favor of a merger, and I'm leaving it still in favor of the merger. And I think that there are some factors aside from tax fairness. I also think a major factor is a clear governing body, and I think as we can look out tonight and see a reduced village meeting, I think we also have been seeing reduced town meeting attendance, and I think one of the best ways of making sure that people know who they're voting for, know when they're voting for them, know what they're voting for, is to consolidate into a single governing entity. And we see a lot of towns that have resources that are valuable to them, like a green, like a downtown, that manage just fine with a select board. And I think a merger is the right move, and I think we'd be able to protect the things that have been important to village residents and town residents, but everyone would have a clearer sense of exactly who they're voting for, why they're voting for them, whose job is what, where the money comes from, and I think that sense of clarity and transparency would do everyone a lot of good and would help boost attendance at town meeting.
I'd like to know how many people here were at town meeting. So the same people were here and as are there. And unfortunately, it's the same core that runs most towns and villages. I would love to see more people attend, both of them as well. I obviously am not in favor of a merger for the reasons I've said, and I think I remember numerous occasions, including ones where the village disagreed with the town on numbering their homes, that would have gone the other way, and your home might have gone from number 5 to number 265. And a lot of people in the village didn't like that, and so the village got to vote separately on that. I do like the idea that Chris brought up of, let's see if we can shift some more money fairly to the town that's distributed amongst all of us who live in Woodstock, but retain the government nature in the village. And I think that would be the best direction to go, sort of a compromise that would still have advantages for village residents.
Anyone else? Marion?
I tend to agree with Ward. I was really quite surprised, and Phil can correct me or clarify my statement, but I believe that the town actually owns the green.
According to surveyor Mr. Bob Holt, the community acquired the green before the village came into existence, which makes it town property. In spite of Lister cards that might call it the village green, all of us call it the village green. That was the conclusion of a very talented surveyor.
But there's the confusion piece, and we're buying trees for it, which we should.
Interesting. I did not know that. Further comments? Go ahead. Wendy?
I think that speaking towards the advantage of having village governance, maintaining some separation, is that the people who live in the village have daily eyes on what's the needs in a more micro sense, even if it's the sidewalk they walk every day, or the puddles they encounter, or whatever it is in a more pedestrian manner. And to have a voice that goes with it is a valuable thing. The farther away you live, the less tuned in you are to simple matters and see the necessity of caring for them.
If there
It's
was
just a
some type of restructuring where we would take away the village as an entity, there would probably be a setup of where if you had a 5-person board now as the selectmen, maybe you jump it to 7 people, and 3 of them would have to be from the village border of what it is today, and then the other 4 could come from either side. I'm not saying that that's what would happen, but it would be assumed that, yes, you would want people within the village confines to, like what you said, you see it every day. There's people who never come into the village and couldn't carry their way of what it looks like.
Okay. A subject we've talked about for a long time. Go ahead.
Carrie, on the other hand, there are a lot of town residents who use our sidewalks constantly, either shopping or coming to work, or.
Which is why the town...
That's why they have
But they'd be
that budget.
represented by 4 people in his scenario.
The town, but that's why the town pays for it.
Oh, okay, because I was about to complain about the sidewalks.
Then
you missed that meeting.
You
missed that meeting.
No, it's the select board you need to go to for that.
Well, I think we could all agree that there's a lot of redundancy and inefficiency, and there's a lack of clarity. So whichever way we went, and I actually don't think that a merger or a division as we have it now is, I don't think either of those is the right approach. We have a very unique situation, and so something that allowed the village to bear a little bit less of the economic burden but still retain a voice would be a nice way to go forward.
Other, Marion?
I would just like to thank the trustees for their service and especially for this discussion, to actually hear your opinions and voices on this other discussion.
I agree with that. Nicely done. Anyone else want to talk about things longer, other than out in the hall? It's fine if you do. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Yeah.
How about that? Jane spoke. There you go, Jane. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. And thank you very much for speaking up and for your participation.
Your mother used that term, actually.
Oh, stepping out.
He's gone.
Okay. All right, so we are still in our meeting. And
Sorry.
I would entertain a motion for the organization of the trustees for the year that commences now.
I would make a motion to nominate Jeff Kahn as chair of the Board of Village Trustees and Carrie Agan as vice chair of the Board of Trustees.
I would second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business besides that to be brought up? I would remind everyone that there's a meeting Thursday night.
I guess I'd have you appoint newspapers of record.
Oh, right, I forgot about that. Newspapers of record, which is the Vermont Standard and the Valley News. Motion to...
So moved.
So moved?
Second.
Second, any discussion? The Valley News and the Vermont Standard?
And one question for Beth, did you find if Michael needs any appointments tonight?
I did not, he did not answer, I totally, yep.
Who's gonna do
I
it?
emailed, but he'd left by that time.
I just want to see if we need to do anybody for Village Development Review Board tonight.
I see.
Oh, I don't think so.
There's people that are up, but I think, if anything, we can have you guys,
Mayhew's
because,
up, Jane is up,
yeah, we can also,
and
can
you have
have you
Region
do it.
3. So Randy Mayhew is up,
Randy's up and Jane is
and
up.
Jane Sullivan is up.
As
I
far
think
as
we can just
know.
renominate them without asking.
Well,
I think you can.
Yeah.
I think you should, and if they
We,
get done, they get done.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I didn't realize that.
They have, I know that neither of them want to step down.
No, they're both very good.
Oh, then would you
So-
like to make a motion?
I move to nominate Jane Sewell and Randy Mayhew to the VDRB.
Second.
Any further discussion on that?
Really into that.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
You then,
Motion carries.
you then have, the Village Design Review Board is Beverly Humpstone and Jack Rossi. They're both up. I don't
And
know if you
does
need
anyone know of any reason?
They're both very active.
They're, yeah.
They
All
like
right.
it.
So moved.
Entertain a motion.
Second.
I'll make a motion
Oh, Carrie just.
to re-elect Beverly Humstone and Jack Rossi to the Design Review Board.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any others?
What about the
The
planning commission?
Planning Commission is Sally Miller and Michael Pacht. The Select Board has already moved to reappoint them, so.
Yeah, your planning commission too.
And those are two good people, so.
I move to reappoint Sally Miller and Michael Pact to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that fulfills all the boards that are openings. Okay. Thank you, Phil, for reminding.
Well, yeah, I know it's troublesome if you can't get a quorum and people want decisions made.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we have scheduled, so everyone knows this, as part of our regular meeting in May, the vote on tax relief for which?
Nonprofits.
For the nonprofits.
There's gonna be, a lot of them did not get their petitions in. I assume you wanna do it on your own motion, so that any of these nonprofits that own property in the village, like the rec center, like the homestead, actually, they got the petition in, but it was wrong. Just do the whole slew of them. Set your warning in April for a May meeting.
Okay, that sounds good. So that includes the Mertens House,
everybody.
Homestead, Rec Center.
They did it wrong?
They did it wrong after all these
Okay,
years?
I'll tell you what they did wrong at the Mertens House and Homestead. They said, by Australian ballot, by petition for the village. The village does not do Australian ballot.
Right.
Except for the 2 trustees. The rec center mentioned that they needed help, but did not close the deal saying how to get the help with tax relief. The Alaquicci Health Center forgot the Simmons House. There's a slew of them.
So next year, can we notify them in enough time so that they can?
They were notified back in October 2018 about this.
Yeah, but they might.
By
So
Mary.
now what's the
So
status?
the trustees can say, you people have to bring in a petition, or you can put it on the warning for town, special village meeting all by yourself, and do it at a regular trustee meeting.
Or they can submit a petition to us.
Right, that's what he
I
said.
think they should submit a petition.
Fine. I will tell them.
Normally, yeah,
Everyone else
and then
had
it
to.
would normally appear as one of the articles tonight. To be
Right.
voted on by everybody. As it is, it will be, ended up being voted by a
Very small.
very few, whoever's at our meeting
Yeah.
in May. Okay, so that'll be on the agenda.
I'll take
for
care of it.
April-
I'll let them
April
know.
To warn for May.
They do not need the 150 signatures that you need in the town, but I think they need about 30.
I mean, that's a
Okay.
significant financial,
It is, so they should be able
I
to
think 30 is.
gather up their forces to show up for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other business?
No, I'm glad we clarified that. That's
All
good.
right,
I
then
do
I
have
would,
I have a question
yes.
for you. As village trustees, do you want a Town of Woodstock email?
I don't.
I noticed that there's only been you, Jeff, and Carrie Egan are the only 2 that have actually activated your accounts, and we pay.
No, I definitely didn't.
I did.
Well, we pay-
I activated it, but
we pay-
I'm not using it.
Don't pay for me anymore.
We
Carrie
pay for
Egan-
you guys, and they haven't been used, so just wondering because we're going to access.
I think it's a Gmail account, isn't it?
We are moving to Access 365, so.
Gmail is not working.
It's not working.
Just, I'm
Then no.
fine with my own personal being used.
Okay.
I just assumed things went through you, Beth, to us.
Is it an influx of emails?
No, the select board all have Town of Woodstock emails associated with their accounts,
Yeah.
and they get all of their correspondence instead of like me. If somebody off the street said,
Private.
"Hey,
Yeah.
what's Jeff's email? I want to email him," I say unicorn,
Right.
Yeah,
whatever it is,
which is-
instead
which
of
is-
Jeff
That's fine.
jcon at townofwoodstock.org.
Yeah.
Got it.
Which is what the select board, and you guys have those emails, but they haven't been used, and with us switching over to
It's
Office
$5 a
365.
month, just so you
Yeah.
know.
I would
It's not
s-
gonna break the bank, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not gonna
but
break the
don't-
bank, but if we're not using it,
Right, why
Right.
bother?
why bother? Unless anyone else objects, I'd say drop it and we'll keep our own emails.
But we did not want to make that command decision for you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, drop us.
Yeah, no, I don't want it. Don't
no,
spend the
I
money
don't-
on me.
yeah.
Just use carrieegan@gmail.com.
I'm fine with that. Yeah. I already have 3. So.
You don't need another one, do you? No.
I don't need another one. People just walk in my door and just talk to me about this stuff.
Anything else to come before us tonight? Otherwise, I'd I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn,
Congratulations,
and
Anna.
welcome, Anna.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So comfy up here. We should do it up here all the time.
Did give it a nice intensification.
Yeah.
Robbie, you had, there was one